We are talking about the offense and the defense and kind of where the team stands right now. What is up, Finn fans? Barry Jackson came out with a two-part article. The first one here, he talks about the offense and kind of where they stand and rumblings he's hearing about who's on the in, who's on the out, and how they're going to address it. And then he just came out with the defensive side. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go over it and we're going to react to it. And then I think tomorrow, The Athletic came out with a very good Vic Fangio article talking about how the fact that he had 10 options, 10 to pick from. This man had 10 different defensive coordinator jobs to pick from, and he picked the Miami Dolphins. And he talks about what he's bringing, all that good stuff. So I might do a video specifically on Vic Fangio either tomorrow or definitely sometime next week, more in depth on who he is and who's coming in and what other people have to say about him and all that other stuff. So it's going to be pretty good. But today we're going to be talking about the offense and the defense, where each position kind of stands, and how they're going to address all that good stuff. But before we jump into it, I do have to shout out a new patron in DL Dolphins, Sweden. Thank you so much for joining the Patreon. If you want to join the Patreon, it's linked in the description. If you want to become a member, it's the join button next to the subscribe button. I said this in the last video. You guys have a special video, the members and the patrons. Go, if you're a patron, go to the Patreon. There's a special video up there for you guys to give you an update on what is going to be happening in 2023 with the Patreon. And if you're a member, go to the community tab. It'll say members only next to the video that's posted. Again, gives you an update on what is coming in 2023 for the membership. So to all the people who are members and patrons, thank you so much. Go check out the video specific to you guys. You get a little update. Also, I give you a little behind the scenes of what's going on with this Tua film breakdown and how I'm doing it. So go check that out. And let's jump into this. So I think this first article was written on the 30th. So this was written yesterday, and then he came out with the defense of today. So first he talks about the quarterbacks. He says who's on the team, Tua, Mike White. Who's likely on the team, Skylar Thompson. He talks about Tua's durability issues. Thompson is a good bet to make the team unless he has an awful training camp and better options surface. I'm pretty sure they're going to probably run with 3 again, Tua, Mike White, and Skylar Thompson. Like he said, unless he has an absolute garbage training camp, which I don't see that happening. He says even if that surprisingly happens, cutting White isn't happening. He already has been guaranteed $4.5 million. Their staff is smitten with him, so it seems like Mike White has, he's the backup job to lose. Then when it comes to running backs, he says who's on the team, Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. He says who's very likely on the team is Savon Ahmed, and who's more likely not on the team is Myles Gaskin, is what he says there. And this is interesting to me when he talks about the running backs. He says it's rare for a team to bring back its entire running back group, but the Dolphins, after making an inquiry on Dalvin Cook, decided to re-sign all 4 at less than $8 million in combined salary. So if you think about it, if we were to go out and get Dalvin Cook, or if we were to go out and trade for Derrick Henry, that's how it would cost just this year, all 4 of the running backs we had for that one guy. So they're going by committee, and I'm all right with Mostert and Jeff Wilson being our 1-2 punch, with Savon Ahmed being in the backup and potentially drafting a running back with the 2nd or 3rd pick. But they did inquire about Dalvin Cook, and the Vikings probably asked for a lot. And plus, he has 3 years left on his contract, and they were probably like, yeah, you're asking for too much, and you're a little too expensive. So, and then he talks about wide receivers. He says who's on the team: Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Braxton Berrios, Eric Izukoma, Koma. He said who has a good chance to make the team, River Craycraft. Who likely will be on the team unless he's traded, Cedric Wilson Jr. And then he said who's on the bubble, Braylon Sanders and Freddie Swan. He says the Dolphins could trade Wilson this offseason to reduce his cap hit from $8 million to $2 million or $1 million, depending on the timing of the trade. They're open to that, but they're also okay with having him on the team, according to an involved source. And they can't cut him because there'll be a dead cap hit. So Cedric Wilson is a possibility, especially when we get closer to the draft. If the Dolphins want an extra 3rd, I don't see them getting a 2nd, right? So maybe if a 3rd, but I could see more of a fourth or a fifth, which the Dolphins don't have right now. So say the draft gets closer, or they're in the draft and they notice, ooh, there's a guy we really like, and he's in the, he's coming up on the fourth round, and oh, this team doesn't need linebacker, safety, corner, tackle, or whatever that player is in the fourth round. That team doesn't need them, but they do need wide receivers. Pick up the phone. And one of those guys are available. I'm pretty sure the Dolphins will call up the team and see if they want Cedric Wilson for that pick, and then also they can pull the trigger on that. So I expect them also to add undrafted free agent and wide receiver. They have 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 receivers right now on the team. I could probably see them adding some more. And he talks about tight end. He says who's on the team: Durham Smythe. Who's likely on the team: Eric Sorbert. And who's on the bubble: Tanner Connor. He says look for 1 or 2 more additions at the position in April. Dolphins coach/staffers are working out several tight ends projected to go in the first 2 through 4 rounds 2 to 4 in the draft. Miami has picks in the 2nd and 3rd, but not the 4th, unless they trade Cedric Wilson Jr. The agent for one predominant tight end who's no longer available said the Dolphins front office did not want to allocate much money to the position. That's understandable considering the lack of receiving targets available for tight ends in Miami's offense, coupled with the draft's strong depth at the position. So yeah, it seems like they're really, they don't want to throw too much money at the tight end position, hence why Mike Gesicki probably left, because they don't want to pay him as much as he got paid in New England. Plus, there's some really good tight ends in the draft. If you go watch me and Broshmo's video, really good. And then finally, on offense, he talks about offensive line. He says, who's on the team? Teron Armstead, Connor Williams, Robert Hunt, Liam Eichenberg, Austin Jackson, and Dan Feeney. He said, who has a pretty good chance to stick? Kendall Lamb and Robert Jones. And who's on the bubble? Garen Christian, Lester Cotton, and Keon Smith. He says the Dolphins likely will add another right tackle at some point, either a veteran or a player in the 2nd or 3rd round. They have inquired about several veteran free agents, but do not appear to have aggressively pursued any. General Manager Chris Greer listed Eichenberg among the team's core players on the offensive line, and at the moment, he's the front runner to start again at left guard. Block. But Feeney and Jones and perhaps another veteran could challenge him. Feeney, whose $1.1 million base salary for 2023 is guaranteed, has 40 NFL starts at left guard. Feeney also, who replaced Houston-bound Michael Dieter at backup center. The Dolphins through earlier this week hadn't pursued incumbent backup tackle Greg Little, and I hope they don't. That's the only position on offense that worries me right now. I'm fine with tight end, especially if they go in the draft. Like I said, go watch the video that me and Broshmo put out. There's a ton of tight ends that we're happy with taking in the 2nd and 3rd round. It's just right tackle. I don't know what they're doing at right tackle. They're okay with having a competition of mediocre at tackle and guard, and it's like, why don't you want the best there? Now, I'm not saying go out and don't pay 5 guys to be the top offensive lineman in the NFL, but it's a problem. It's a little bit of a problem. It's a big problem. Then he goes on to the defense. This article came out today. He says defensive line, who's on the team? Christian Wilkins, Emmanuel Ogbah, Zach Sealer, Raekwon Davis, who faces an uphill climb, Josiah Bronson, and Jalen Twan. And then bearing a trade, Ogbah is safe because his $15 million salary is guaranteed. I could see Ogbah being a type of the player who can get restructured if the Dolphins need more cap space, because the Dolphins, I'll give you a little cap update, they're about $1 million in cap space right now. They don't got much money. Dolphins haven't shown any inclination to restructuring his contract, which has 3 years remaining. Because of that, his 2024 cap hit would drop from $17.8 million to $4 million if he's cut after this upcoming season. That's probably why they haven't allocated his money. And then Wilkins and perhaps Sealer are both in line for a contract extension this offseason, and I'm hearing the Dolphins are very serious about giving Christian Wilkins a contract extension. He's definitely deserving of it. Then we have linebackers. He says, who's on the team? Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Jerome Baker, David Long, Duke Riley, Andrew Van Ginkel, and Channing Tindall. Who's likely on the team? Malik Reed. And who's on the bubble? Cameron Good, who was our 6th round pick last year. No, I think he was one of the 7th. Him and Skylar Thompson were our 7th last year. Comment. He says, while Reed is likely to stick as a backup outside linebacker, it's not certain. There's an outside chance a rookie could overtake him this summer. A little more than half, 650,000 of his 1.1 million is guaranteed. So they brought him in because of his comfortable and his understanding with Vic Fangio and how well he did with Bradley Chubb. But it's like a high reward, low risk type situation. Pro Football Focus metric: Long is far better against the pass than Elena Roberts, who wasn't re-signed and subsequently joined the Steelers. Robert was a solid run defender, but he was horrible in the pass. Then we have safety, and he had Javon Holland, Deshaun Elliott, and Brandon Jones. Who's on the team? Who's likely on the team is Elijah Campbell. Who's on the bubble is Ron McKinley III. He says McDaniel praised McKinley's football acumen, but he will need to hold off rookies and perhaps a veteran addition to stick. I could see the Dolphins' 4 safeties being Javon Holland, Deshaun Elliott, Brandon Jones, and Ron McKinley. They all played with each other. Deshaun Elliott played with Brandon Jones. Veron McKinley III played with Javon Holland in college. Like, those 4 guys all played with each other. I could see that being our 4 safeties. Cornerbacks, he said Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, Cater Kohu, and Nick Needham, who was on the team. Who's likely on the team is Keon Crossan and Justin Bethel. And who's on the bubble is Trill Williams and Noah Igbenogany. I want to see what he has to say about Trill Williams. I would think that Trill Williams would make the team. Igbenogany, who had a game-stealing interception against Pittsburgh, logged 238 defensive snaps in 9 games and 2 starts last season. He is due to earn $2.1 million this season, with a $1.6 million guaranteed. He'll need to win a job in training camp. The Dolphins can move on from him and cost absolutely nothing. He doesn't really talk about Trill Williams. He says Igbenogany's metrics weren't bad last season. He had a 77.1 passer rating in his coverage area, 11 completions and 23 targets for 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that 1 interception. Here we go. The Dolphins are eager to see Williams, who missed last season with a torn ACL. He's appeared in 1 game. That's all he really says about Trill Williams. To me, when it comes to the cornerbacks, I could see, and again, before they have to cut down from 53 to 90, and now it's just 1 cut. Back last year, they would go from 90 to 80 to 70 to 53. It was 3 or 4 different times. 90 to 80, that's 1 time. 80 to 70, it was three cuts down to 53. Now it's from 90 to 53, like that. You're getting, I think it's after the last preseason game, a huge cut. I'm going to make my prediction of the depth chart. I'm normally pretty good on that. I think I've missed like 3 or 4 every year. But when it comes to cornerbacks, I expect the corners to be Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, Cater Kohu, Nick Needham, and Trill Williams. Those are the 5 that I think they're going to ride with corner. Possibly a 6 being Keon Crossan, because he is very good in the special teams. But Noah, I just see Noah being the odd man out, especially with the addition of Jalen Ramsey. And like I told you about the safeties, linebackers, I'm happy with the linebackers. That linebacker core completely different with David Long in there and bringing back Andrew Van Ginkel. They need another middle linebacker, but I'm hoping they give Channing Tindall a shot, and I hope Vic Fangio can get the best out of Channing Tindall. So they run with the middle linebackers being Jerome Baker, David Long, Duke Riley, and Channing Tindall. But I still want to add another middle linebacker there. And I think there's still some options available. I know Bobby Wagner went back to Seattle, and I think Levante David went back to Tampa. Rashad Evans is still out there. Anthony Walker. Rashad Evans, I don't know. I would want to add one more linebacker. We'll see. We'll see what they do there. But yeah, that's what he had to say. I'm going to do, every year I do this, especially when camp comes, I do my position battles. So once, free agency is over, because it's kind of over now, if you notice it's real dead. And once the draft's over, being that April is tomorrow, And no, I'm not the type of person who's going to try to do an April Fool's type video or post, because then I feel like you're losing my trust on giving you reliable information. If all of a sudden I say, breaking news, Miami Dolphins trade Tua Tagovailoa for shada, and then I'm like, April Fool's, then you're not going to trust me anymore. I don't do that. I don't do April Fool's stuff. But with April coming up, it's draft, and then after the draft, grade the drafts and everything. I'm going to do my video this month about looking back 3 years ago and seeing how that draft went, which is Tua's draft. So we're going to look at that. But yeah, I got a lot planned. And then I'm going to project the depth chart. We got training camp. So much. I don't take off. Cover the draft, cover mini camps, cover OTAs, cover training camp, cover preseason, and then obviously I cover the season. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, and you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. I will see you guys definitely on Monday with my film breakdown of Tua Tagovailoa. It's going to be a long one, probably an hour-long video, but I'm going to timestamp it. So if you're like, I don't care about this game, I want to see this game, it'll be timestamped. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Like usual, stay classy. FN's up.